and we have two special guests that are joining us now. I am very pleased to welcome Prince Harry and Meghan. They are my favorite Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They are my favorites, who have worked extensively over the years on mental health, specifically around online dangers and the vulnerability both adults and children can feel in the digital space. So several years ago, they created the Parents Network. These two are always doing things to help others. It's a global network of families that have lost children who engaged in online content. Their mission is this: to find solutions to keep all the children safe, including yours. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate you taking the time, because I'm thinking we're all trying to figure this out and it seems so hard. Meghan and Harry, welcome to you all.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you, Jonathan. Good to see you again.
Buddy.
Nice to meet you.
Very, very nice to see you all.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's such an incredible way to start the year, too, because I think so many people are thinking about what their priorities are for the year, especially as we think about our children or your grandchildren, Gayle, as you said, and to just really reframe it, and also how that fits into our collective mental well-being. So we definitely have questions, and, you know, Jonathan, you're always a wealth of knowledge, so we're thrilled to be able to be here.
Harry, you want to go first?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Jonathan, first off, we saw you last on World Mental Health Day, and over the years we've worked with you on how the digital space is deeply affecting our collective and mental, emotional, and physical health. And obviously, a huge congratulations to you and the outcome of your research, which has created a parent-led movement, which is astonishing and much needed.
And that we're proud to be a part of.
Yeah, hugely.
Yes.
And the insights have been incredibly valuable over the years for our work with parents who have lost their children to online harms, and working towards solutions to keep all children safe.
So before I say a single word, you just heard Gayle King introduce Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. And let's be very clear right from the start. That was not a neutral introduction. That was not a polite filler joining us now moment. That was Gayle King, Oprah's best friend, one of the most respected journalists in American media, casually and confidently saying, "They are my favorite Duke and Duchess of Sussex." Not former, not controversial, not so-called. Favorite Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Now, I know, I can already hear the UK press hyperventilating into their teacups. How dare she? Is she allowed to say that? Why is everyone always so nice to Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex? Because, dear tabloids, when you leave the echo chamber, reality hits different. Let's talk about why that introduction mattered, because it wasn't just friendly, it was intentional. Gayle didn't introduce Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, as celebrities popping in for clout. She introduced them as people who have worked extensively over the years on mental health, specifically online dangers, digital vulnerability, and the impact on children and families. She highlighted the Parents Network, not royal titles, not gossip, not family drama. Work, purpose, impact. And here's the part the UK media hates the most. She made it sound normal, calm, respectful, almost boring, in the best way, because when you're actually doing meaningful work, it doesn't need theatrics. Then comes the warmth, the greetings, the genuine smiles you can hear through the audio. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, greeting Catherine Price and Jonathan Haidt by name. Harry sounding relaxed, engaged, present. No stiffness, no awkward scripts, no need to perform royal cosplay for approval. And Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, says something quietly powerful that many people missed. She talks about the beginning of the year, about priorities, about children, grandchildren, and reframing what actually matters, collective mental well-being. That's not a soundbite, that's a worldview. Now, let's zoom out for a second, because context is everything. This is Oprah's special. Oprah, the same Oprah whose name still sends parts of the British press into a decade-long meltdown spiral. This is Gayle King, who has known Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, personally, defended her publicly, and never once backtracked. This is Jonathan Haidt, a leading voice on the psychological effects of social media. This is Catherine Price, serious people. Serious conversation. And Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, are not guests for decoration. They are participants, question askers, collaborators. Harry literally says, I've got a couple of questions, and then dives into Jonathan's research, referencing years of shared work and World Mental Health Day. Let that sink in. Prince Harry, the man tabloids reduce to bitter spare headlines, is discussing longitudinal research, parent-led movements, and systemic online harms. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, adds that we're proud to be a part of, not leading with ego, leading with community. This is what the UK media never shows you, not because it doesn't exist, but because it completely destroys the narrative they've been selling. Because here's the inconvenient truth. Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, didn't leave to disappear. They left to focus. And focus is dangerous when your critics rely on chaos. While the tabloids were busy counting how many times Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, blinked at a charity event, Harry and she were building a global network of families who lost children due to online harm. While royal commentators were screaming about duty, Harry was working directly with parents whose lives were shattered by algorithms designed for profit over safety. That's not rebellion, that's responsibility. And let's talk about Gayle again, because she deserves her flowers. Gayle didn't hedge. She didn't say, one of my favorite Duke and Duchess of Sussex. She said, my favorite Duke and Duchess of Sussex. That's confidence. That's loyalty. And that's also credibility speaking. Gayle King doesn't need royal access. She doesn't need approval from Buckingham Palace. She doesn't need to please British editors. She's telling you what she sees. And what she sees are two people who, quote, are always doing things to help others. Always. Not once a year, not for cameras, not for optics, always. Now, contrast that with how the UK media will likely frame this. They'll either ignore it completely, minimize it, or try to twist it into something ridiculous like Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, lecture parents again, or Sussexes insert themselves into debate. But notice something. Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, weren't lecturing anyone. They were asking questions. They were listening. They were collaborating with experts. That's leadership without arrogance. And Meghan's tone? Calm, thoughtful, warm. The exact opposite of the caricature they've tried to glue onto her for years. There's also something deeply symbolic here that doesn't get enough attention. Harry and Meghan are working in spaces that protect children from harm, and the very institutions that failed to protect them from harm, from harassment, from abuse, from misinformation, are the same ones criticizing them. The irony writes itself. They are trying to make digital spaces safer while being two of the most digitally abused public figures of the last decade. If anyone understands online harm, it's them. Not theoretically, not academically, lived experience. And let's not overlook Meghan's framing of collective mental well-being. That word, collective, matters. She's not talking about individual self-help nonsense. She's talking about systems, communities, shared responsibility. That's grown-up talk. That's policy-adjacent talk. That's why these conversations happen on platforms like Oprah's, not in clickbait columns. Another thing the haters will never admit, Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, are not isolated. They are deeply connected to experts, to activists, to parents, to global conversations. You don't get invited into spaces like this because of titles. You get invited because people trust your intentions. And trust is something they've built, not demanded. Now, imagine just for a second if this had been any other royal. Imagine the coverage. So inspiring. Such dedication. What a thoughtful contribution. But because it's Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, suddenly the goalposts move. Suddenly empathy becomes agenda. Suddenly child safety becomes self-promotion. The double standard is embarrassing. What we're watching here is not a couple clinging to relevance. It's a couple redefining what relevance actually looks like in 2026. It's not balcony appearances, it's not uniforms, it's not waving. It's showing up where harm is happening and asking, how do we fix this? And doing it quietly, consistently, without theatrics. And yes, let's say it plainly. Meghan looked and sounded exactly like what she is. Comfortable, respected, and completely unbothered. No defensiveness, no proving, no over-explaining, just clarity. That's what happens when you've outgrown the noise. So when Gayle King says, my favorite Duke and Duchess of Sussex, it's not shade, it's truth. It's acknowledgement. It's a reflection of how Harry and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, are perceived outside of the British tabloid bubble. Globally, they're seen as advocates, as parents, as people trying to make things better, not louder. And the most delicious part of all this, they didn't say a single thing about the monarchy. Not one. Not a jab, not a reference, not one comparison. They didn't have to, because growth doesn't argue, impact doesn't shout, and purpose doesn't need permission. So, to the critics who will inevitably twist themselves into knots over this appearance, breathe. The world didn't end because Gayle King likes Harry and Meghan. The sky didn't fall because they're doing meaningful work. And no amount of angry headlines can undo the fact that they are exactly where they belong. At the table, in the conversation, doing the work. And with that, I'll say this. History is always kinder to people who tried to protect children than people who tried to protect institutions. Harry and Meghan made their choice. And honestly, it's aging beautifully.